It started with a thought. A fleeting, almost imperceptible idea that lingered in the back of my mind for years, like a shadow I couldn't quite shake. I've always considered myself straight. I've dated women, had relationships, and enjoyed the intimacy that came with them. But there was always this curiosity. A quiet, persistent whisper that grew louder over time until it became impossible to ignore. I'm in my late 20s now, and over the past year, that curiosity has transformed into something more tangible. It's no longer just a vague interest, it's a desire, a need to explore a side of myself I've kept hidden for so long. I've spent countless nights alone, scrolling through images and videos, imagining what it would be like to be with another man. The thought of kissing him, touching him, feeling his body against mine, it excites me in a way I can't fully explain. But it's more than just physical. It's about understanding myself, about embracing a part of me I've been too afraid to acknowledge. The decision to explore this side of myself was anything but easy. The process felt like a trial of contradictions. Each time the thought surfaced, it was immediately met by another, a wave of guilt, shame, or fear of how I might be judged, not just by others but by myself. Could I reconcile this decision with the person I believed myself to be? The hesitation wasn't just moral, it was existential. Who am I if I open this door? In the end, the curiosity was undeniable. Ignoring it would have been like trying to silence my own heartbeat. The preparation. The first step was finding someone. And surprisingly, this was the part that took the most out of me emotionally. It wasn't just the act of browsing through profiles, scrolling past faces and descriptions, but the act of choosing. With every click, I felt like I was moving one step closer to something irreversible, stepping into uncharted territory. Alex was the one. I couldn't explain why. There were dozens of others with similar smiles or promises of a safe and welcoming experience, but something about him felt right. His profile struck a balance, approachable but confident, experienced yet unassuming. His description carried an assurance I desperately needed. The night before I messaged him, I barely slept. My thoughts ran in loops. What if he says no? What if he says yes? Even as my fingers hovered over the keyboard, my chest felt tight. When I finally pressed send, it felt like I had crossed some invisible line. His response was kind. Simple but kind. The tone he struck, warm, professional, non-judgmental, was the tether I clung to as doubts continued to swirl in the days leading up to our meeting. There was something comforting about how ordinary it felt, at least in his hands. I imagined countless scenarios about how it might go. The intimacy, yes, but also the awkwardness, the vulnerability. Would it feel natural? Would it feel like a betrayal of myself or the life I had carefully constructed? In many ways, it felt like preparing for a confession, a laying bare of something I wasn't sure I could articulate, let alone live with afterward. The meeting. The day arrived with an overwhelming mix of emotions, excitement, yes, but also an undercurrent of guilt and uncertainty. I questioned myself repeatedly as I got ready. Was this really what I wanted? Could I live with the consequences? My reflection in the mirror didn't seem to hold the answers. The drive to the hotel felt surreal, as though I were watching someone else's life unfold. My palms were damp on the steering wheel. Every mile closer felt like stepping into a world I couldn't retreat from. By the time I stood outside his door, my hands trembled. For a moment, I thought about walking away, about turning back and pretending this had never happened. When Alex opened the door, the warmth in his smile was disarming. "Hey," he greeted, his voice steady, calm. "Come in." The simplicity of it grounded me, pulled me out of the whirlpool of overthinking. I stepped inside, feeling both exposed and oddly comforted by his presence. We sat on the couch, and Alex made no move to rush me. He asked me questions about myself, not just about why I was there but about who I was. His curiosity was genuine, and it put me at ease. With every question, I felt layers of tension peeling away. It struck me that, for the first time, I wasn't trying to project a version of myself I thought someone else wanted. I was just me. When Alex leaned in to kiss me, it was slower than I'd expected, almost deliberate. His movements were unhurried, like he was offering me an unspoken invitation rather than claiming the moment outright. I felt his warmth before our lips even met, a steady presence that seemed to calm the whirlwind in my chest. My heart raced, pounding so loudly in my ears that I barely registered the soft pressure of his lips at first. The kiss was tender, almost hesitant, like he was giving me the space to process it, to decide if this was what I truly wanted. And yet, despite the cautiousness, there was a confidence in the way he kissed me, a quiet assurance that, somehow, this moment would be okay. The softness of his lips, the faint taste of mint on his breath, it was so different from anything I had ever known. Familiar, in a sense, but entirely foreign at the same time. It was strange, exhilarating, and terrifying, all at once. My initial response was awkward. I tensed, unsure of where to place my hands or how to reciprocate. My mind buzzed with questions. Was I doing it right? Did I seem as inexperienced as I felt? Was he judging me? But Alex didn't pull away or seem put off by my nervousness. Instead, he deepened the kiss slightly, guiding me with gentle movements, allowing me to follow his lead. He broke away for a moment, his face inches from mine, his expression soft. "Breathe," he said, his voice low and soothing. "It's okay. You don't have to rush." I nodded, inhaling deeply, trying to calm the chaotic mess of thoughts swirling in my head. His words felt like an anchor, something to hold onto as I waded through the sea of uncertainty. I closed my eyes and leaned back in, this time letting myself be present in the moment. As the kiss deepened, I began to relax. My movements became less hesitant, more instinctive. I let my hands find their way to his shoulders, feeling the firmness of his frame beneath my touch. It was strange, touching another man like this. The sensations were similar to what I'd known before, but there was a weight and solidity to him that was entirely different. I couldn't help but marvel at the novelty of it, at the way it both challenged and excited me. Alex's patience was palpable. He didn't rush me or push me beyond what I was ready for. Every movement, every touch, felt deliberate, like he was guiding me without ever taking control. It was as if he understood the unspoken battle raging inside me, the push and pull of desire, fear, and self-discovery. He gave me the space to explore at my own pace, and I was grateful for it. As we moved to the bed, I felt a fresh wave of nerves wash over me. The gravity of what was about to happen hit me all over again, and for a moment, I froze. Alex seemed to sense my hesitation. He sat beside me, his hand resting lightly on my knee, and looked at me with a calm, reassuring expression. "You're in control here," he said. "We only do what you're comfortable with. If you want to stop, we stop." His words settled something in me. The tension in my shoulders eased, and I nodded. "I'm okay," I said, though my voice wavered slightly. I've never done anything like this before." He smiled, a small, understanding curve of his lips. "That's why I'm here. We'll take it one step at a time." And we did. He started with something simple, a light touch on my arm, his fingers tracing a path up to my shoulder. His touch was warm, steady, and unhurried, giving me time to adjust to each new sensation. He guided my hands to his chest, letting me feel the rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my palms. It was grounding, that steady thrum, a reminder that this was real, that I wasn't alone in this. As we explored each other's bodies, I found myself becoming more attuned to the moment. The initial awkwardness gave way to curiosity, and I began to notice the details. The way his skin felt under my fingers, the subtle shifts in his breathing, the quiet sounds of approval he made when I touched him in certain ways. Each new discovery felt like a small victory, a step closer to understanding this part of myself. But the experience wasn't just physical. There was an emotional depth to it that caught me off guard. As we kissed and touched, I felt a sense of connection I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about desire, it was about intimacy, about allowing myself to be vulnerable in a way I never had before. I was letting someone see a part of me I had kept hidden for so long, and in doing so, I felt a strange mix of liberation and fear. At one point, as I rested my head against his chest, I found myself overwhelmed by the weight of it all. The doubts, the fears, the years of suppressing this part of myself, they all came rushing to the surface. I pulled back slightly, tears welling in my eyes. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know why I'm crying." Alex reached up and gently wiped a tear from my cheek. "You don't have to apologize," he said. "This is a big moment for you. It's okay to feel everything you're feeling." His words struck a chord in me. For so long, I had tried to suppress my emotions, to push down the parts of myself that didn't fit the narrative I had built. But here, in this moment, I was allowing myself to feel, really feel, and it was both terrifying and cathartic. As we continued, I felt myself letting go of the barriers I had built around my heart. I allowed myself to be present, to embrace the moment without overthinking it. The connection between us grew stronger, and for the first time, I felt truly seen, not as the person I pretended to be, but as the person I was, flaws and all. The evening unfolded like a slow, deliberate dance, each step building on the last. Alex's patience never wavered, and his guidance felt like a steady hand on my shoulder, encouraging me to take the leap while reassuring me that I wouldn't fall. By the end, I felt a sense of fulfillment I hadn't expected. It wasn't just about the physical experience. It was about the emotional journey, the act of reclaiming a part of myself I had long ignored. When it was over, we lay side by side, the silence between us comfortable and unpressured. I stared at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. I felt a strange sense of peace, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had been lifted. But alongside that peace was a lingering sense of uncertainty. What did this mean for me? For my future? For the person I thought I was? Alex seemed to sense my internal conflict. He turned to me, his expression gentle. "How are you feeling?" he asked. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "I don't know," I admitted. "Good, I think. But also confused." He nodded, as though he understood exactly what I meant. "That's normal," he said. "This is a big step, and it's okay to take your time processing it. You don't have to have all the answers right now." His words stayed with me as I got dressed and prepared to leave. I knew he was right. I didn't need to have all the answers yet. But I also knew that this experience had changed me in ways I was only beginning to understand. It wasn't just about the act itself. It was about the journey, the act of facing my fears and embracing the unknown. As I left the hotel and stepped into the cool night air, I felt a sense of quiet determination. This was just the beginning, a single step on a path I had only just started to walk. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt and fear, but I knew I was ready to face them. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally learning who I truly was. When it was all over, the room felt different, quieter, as though it had absorbed the weight of what had just transpired. Alex smiled at me, his expression soft, understanding. "How do you feel?" he asked. I didn't know how to answer. "Good," I said finally, though the word felt inadequate. It was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. I felt good, yes, but also conflicted, raw, exposed. There was a part of me that wanted to laugh, another part that wanted to cry. As I left the hotel and stepped into the night air, I felt the enormity of the moment settle over me. I had done it. I had crossed the line I had drawn for myself years ago, and there was no going back. And yet I didn't feel regret. If anything, I felt free. But freedom, I realized, wasn't without its complications. The questions remained. What did this mean for me? For my relationships? For the life I thought I had planned? The answers didn't come that night, nor in the days that followed. But for the first time, I was okay with not knowing. For the first time, I was okay with just being. This wasn't the end of my journey. It was the beginning of something I couldn't yet define, but I was no longer afraid to explore. And that, I realized, was enough. Have you ever taken a step into the unknown, driven by curiosity and the need to understand yourself, only to find it both thrilling and unnerving? Have you felt the weight of secrecy, guilt, and vulnerability as you sought to uncover a part of yourself you've kept hidden for so long? This journey, like mine, might not be easy, but it's one that changes you forever. I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever wrestled with a decision that forced you to confront who you truly are? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm eager to learn how you navigated those transformative moments. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more reflections on self-discovery, connection, and the courage it takes to embrace your truest self. This journey is only just beginning. There's so much more ahead.